Hi there, and welcome to the very first episode of a little show I'm calling The Collectors. My name's Chad Starbuck, and I'm going to be your host as we virtually travel across America in search of some of the most unique, fascinating, and even obscure collections that are out there. And where there are collections, there are collectors. And each week we're going to get to hear their stories of how they built up their collections and then learn a little bit more of the how and why they collect what they do. Now, I've been collecting in some form or fashion since I was a little kid. Started out collecting baseball cards. Now, as an adult, I moved into collecting vintage pennants, vintage clothes, and then moved into vintage motorcycles and even vintage cars. Now, most of the time, my intentions are to buy for the purpose of selling. But there are just so many fascinating things out there, but I end up keeping a lot more of the items than I probably should. Now, I think everyone has collected something at some point in their life, whether it be that souvenir that they pick up when they're on vacation, or maybe it's that vintage salt and pepper shaker that they pick up in the antique store down in the historic district. So if you yourself are a collector, or you just enjoy experiencing the collection of others, join us each week as we travel across America, visiting with the real people that make collecting their passion. So why don't we get right to it? Let's welcome in our very first guest. She's from Northern California. Let's welcome in Ruth Rosenfield. Ruth, welcome to The Collectors. I'm so glad to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me. It's so nice.
Yes, this is going to be great. This is our first show, and so you're my first guest. I'm very excited about that.
I am
So
too.
thank you for being here. So you and I have really just met on Instagram, right? I think I'm certainly, I know I've bought from you, like a lot of people have bought from you.
Yes.
And so I really wanted to bring you on because I really have enjoyed what you do. I enjoy your pictures, and everything that you do is part of your collecting. So
Thank
I
you.
want to learn more about what it is that you do collect and how you go about it. So what are some of the things that inspired you to kind of start your collecting?
Well, I think I've always been a collector. You know, my mother used to say that my whole childhood room was like a collection. You know, I never let her throw anything away. She would have to come in unsure when I was at school and stealthily throw things out because I just like being surrounded by stuff and am fascinated by multiples of things. And I don't know where that comes from, but it's it's just like I think I've always been that way. And so I think when I started to discover vintage things, when I was in art school, I went to art school in Pasadena in California, in Southern California, and there was fantastic flea markets every weekend. And so I started going to them and just discovering, it was so interesting to find out the history of things and to be exposed to design. Really, I was in art school and kind of looking for inspiration. And, you know, there's just so much fantastic design history that's happened that, you know, it's like this whole world opened up to me and I started collecting stuff. I think then, seriously, didn't have a lot of money, but I just I don't really necessarily collect expensive things. I sort of just things that appeal to my graphic sensibility.
And so, yeah, so is that, I mean, is there things in your background that make you or attract you to certain things?
Yeah, I think I'm a advertising art director by trade. So I went to art school and I've worked in the advertising agency world for over 30 years. I won't say how long. And lots of different agencies in New York and back in Los Angeles and in the Bay Area here. And so, of course, I'm always attracted to advertising items, things that have, you know, were used for sale, you know, anything that has great typography.
Right.
I love color. I mean, I just can't get enough of things that are colorful. I'll never be one of those people who lives in I love all white, neutral kind of environments, but it's never going to be my comfort zone. You know, I just love color and like pattern and graphics and anything, you know, so I think I'm attracted to those kinds of, you know, things that kind of evoke all that nostalgia and that kind of design, you know.
I think you're very similar to me that we're attracted. It's hard to describe things that we're attracted to, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can go through a flea market and not buy anything and just one thing will jump out at you.
Yeah, and it's often, I think that's kind of the thing that when I started going to flea markets was not having a shopping list, sort of just being open to seeing what you see. And that's really now when I go to an estate sale, it's even like times 100, because you're going into somebody's house and finding things that they might have in their junk drawer that isn't anything. It might be a tape measure with an old, from an old store, or a pencil, or a cup, or things that aren't, in the valuable section, but that for me hold this great appeal. And I kind of, I don't know, put things together in a way that just what is attractive to me, so, that's, that's the fun of it. It's really,
it certainly is. That's certainly the fun of it. So you're in Northern California, right?
Yes.
So where are you going to kind of pull your items?
Well, these days, it's really been hard in with COVID and stuff. There are some estate sales starting up again, with a lot of social distancing.
Right.
And we have traditionally a lot of great flea markets here. One that I sell at quite often, but it's been closed since March, so they're not going to open till next year. I go to garage sales. I'll drive to a little car swap meet if I think there's going to be stuff there. I really will go almost anywhere in almost any distance to find stuff. I like to drive. I'm from LA originally, and I like driving, so that's
we certainly
with a car.
To find sometimes to find the good stuff, you gotta make a trip for it.
Oh, and you never know where it's gonna be. That's the thing is, I've really learned. You look at ads and things that are going to be at an estate sale, and you kind of get a sense of the things that are there, but I'm surprised all the time. You really have to just dig deep and be persistent. I think that's the main.
So I think, again, like me, I think you started out kind of just collecting, right?
Yes.
And then you have certainly got into selling as well.
Yes. Yeah. So I started collecting, but I was really busy, with a big career, and I didn't have really the time or really the inclination to be on the other side of it, on the selling side of it. And then I sort of started working my career, was winding down, but I really, grew less interested in it. It's kind of funny. And I love art direction. I love photography, but I sort of started melding that world with the world of, started going to more estate sales, figuring out how that whole world works. What I just never knew about that or had an interest in it. And then now I've sort of found a way to combine my visual art direction skills with my, love of the hunt, finding things. And then that of course turned into hoarding so much stuff. So I had to, my husband's like, I hope you're going to start selling soon. I was like, oh, I don't know how to do that. How do I start selling? I was intimidated by selling at a flea market, which seems like a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
And, and I didn't really Instagram, I followed people on Instagram, but I didn't know how to use that, you know what I mean? I don't know. I just so I started following people, and I really started because I would go to a sale and I would take a photograph just for like a record of what I bought. So I'd just lay it all out on the floor and take a picture of it instead of, I'm not like an Excel spreadsheet person at all. I'm totally visual. So that was my way of remembering what I bought at a sale, what I paid for the whole lot, kind of thing. And I would take a picture of it and make notes. And then of course, I'm making these pictures and I can't make them look just like cruddy. I got to I have to art direct them. So I started art directing them. And that's how I sort of started doing these flat lays of things that I bought. And then I started posting them on, somehow started posting them on Instagram, and then I've gotten better and better at it. And then people started asking, oh, is that for sale? And I would be like, sure. I wasn't trying to sell it. I was really just posting for inspiration, if you will, and
right.
I sort of, and then as my audience grew, I started to be able to just through direct message, sell directly on Instagram. And then I've opened an Etsy store since, but
okay.
really most of my sales come directly from my feed on Instagram. So
that's fantastic. And going back to your flat lays,
yeah.
those are, I think you're very well known for them, and you definitely, your art direction mind, or your eye, I can definitely see in the photos that you do.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of nice to, like, that's what I loved about working in advertising. I didn't really love, as of late, especially all the, I don't know, the politics and I don't know, the way the business is going. It just, I've been in it a long time, you know, and I think my kids are through college now. I don't really need that big high powered job, but I miss the creative, you know, I'm always been doing something creative.
Right.
I'm always going to be, no matter what. So this is just a great outlet for creativity for me, and without like a client, you know, hanging over my head type of thing. So it's really fun, actually.
Well, let's jump into your collection a little bit. I know that, you know, you kind of described earlier, you know, your eye catches a lot of different things, but I'm going to assume right now that one of the things that you're into is sitting right behind you.
Yes, it is. There it is. I started.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this is mostly jadeite. This is mostly jadeite Fire King brand, and I've been collecting this This is one of my oldest collections. Probably since I started going to flea markets in art school, so maybe when I was like 19 or 20, and I started collecting it because a friend of mine had a bunch of it. He grew up in Minnesota, and it was just their everyday dishes, and he had some handed down from his mother. And I was in LA during the big Northridge earthquake, and at that time, I had been collecting California pottery, which is a lot of Bauer and USA pottery that's really brightly colored. And long story short, in the earthquake, all of it broke. And
wow!
And I had a pretty large collection of it, and so I just couldn't bring myself to sort of start that collection again. It was sort of really heartbreaking, and I always loved the color, you know, of this. And so I said, okay, I'm just going to start collecting that. And this is pre-Martha Stewart, making it very, very popular and expensive. But you know, I used to be able to get it for really very, very reasonable prices, you know, $1 a piece, basically. Some of the larger pieces, maybe I would pay like $10 for, but really not much more than that. And I've had it for a really long time. And I add to it still here and there when I find an unusual piece, or even you can see I have multiples of many pieces. So if I find a piece cheap or at an estate sale, every once in a while I find something that I can't believe I found, you know, like even now with the prices that it is, you know, it's kind of.
Well, I hope you have that cabinet secured to the wall.
It is definitely. Yeah. It's strapped to the wall for sure. Like I found this little piece right here. I want to show you this little piece. This is this actually isn't Fire King. There were a lot of manufacturers that made jadeite, but this is just a little dish, and must have been from a place called Ruth's. Yeah. You know, like how could I not buy that? That's
yes, that one is specifically made for you.
Yeah.
So so besides the jadeite, what are you kind of like into right now?
Well, I guess I'm one of my newest. It's funny, like now that I go to a lot of estate sales and a lot of flea markets, I'm exposed to so much more stuff, like in what we call in the wild, like in its original form. And so what happened is I'll see something and then I'll start seeing it over and over, and maybe one of them isn't interesting to me, but then when I start to see multiples, I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. So one of the things I've started collecting are these little carved wooden sailor figurines, and I have a couple of them here. And I guess a lot of nautical collectors, people who they're just these little carved guys with very funny personalities, little faces, and they're all different sizes. Here's another one, and they're individually carved. Yep, and they're really, I don't know, something about their little personalities just kind of kill me. And I started collecting them. I found a few at an estate sale, and I put them in one of my flat lays and sold them. And then all of a sudden I was like, why did I sell those? I kind of like those guys. So I was like, I got to find more of those guys. I'm going to just keep them this time. And then they each just have their own little personality. This is the funniest thing is I discovered that when the person who's carving it makes a mistake, then they just turn it into like a peg leg or a peg arm.
Now,
So
are they, do they have marks on them as far as artists and such?
this one, sometimes I don't know if they're signed. This one has a store that clearly it was purchased at. I don't think so. Some have bases, some don't. Here's another guy. I just love their little, their little expression. So of course now I've got 30 or so, all different sizes, and and I bought them accessories. They have little boats to stand on, and I'm collecting other nautical type, ships and whales and little, and they're all on my mantelpiece. And I love them. They're just kind of, it's a quirky thing. And I didn't grow up in some, seafaring town or whatever, but I can't even actually be on a boat. I get really
well, it's interesting to think. It's interesting to think about things that are very, regional or territorial, based on where you live and the things that you find. Like those are things that I haven't really seen, where I'm at in Utah, obviously.
Well, they seem like they would be like a New England thing to me.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't know. These all all of them have come from Northern California. Yeah. So, you have people who are, people. I really love souvenirs. So I think that it's like anything that's a souvenir, and obviously that's a kind of a souvenir. Some are more, obviously pennants, I love pennants, and so do you. And and so that's like the classic souvenir. So the ashtray or anything with the name of a place on it, I don't know, something nostalgic and usually very graphic about that. So I don't know, that's just kind of my sweet spot.
As we're kind of thinking about some of the other things in your collection, I think all of us kind of have something like this, something that's, really unique, or something that we're really proud of, that is in our collection. Do you have something like that?
I do. I have, it's a really wonderful vintage general store cabinet, like a display cabinet.
Okay.
That was in it's long, and it has 3 skinny drawers, and it held fishing lures. It was from a fishing lure company. Again, a piece of advertising that sits on the desk or the counter of a general store. And the cool thing about it is that it actually came from my own family, and I didn't even know it existed. A cousin of mine was here visiting me when I started up this whole vintage thing about 4 years ago. And she said, I think I have something in my basement you would like. And I was like, you do? And she said, oh yeah, it's from Uncle Rube. And that's like our great uncle, basically. Yep. He was a traveling candy distributor salesman. And he had a little bit of a gambling issue. And I think he is known to a womanizing and gambling situation. But he was always wonderful. He was sending us like candy samples, like boxes of them. And he lived in New York. And we lived in the West Coast I grew up in Southern California. And she lived on the East Coast, and her father got this cabinet from him. And then she ended up getting it, my cousin Susan. And we think it's from Wisconsin. So he must have won it in a poker match or something like that, we're thinking. And he came, and it's the most beautiful, something I would die to find at an estate sale. It has the most gorgeous graphic of a fish on the side that's in beautiful condition, and it has these skinny drawers. And now I keep my typewriter ribbon collection, which is another collection, in the little skinny drawers. And it arrived in this box from her, and I almost fell over. I mean, it's
that's totally amazing,
incredible. Yeah, and I don't have a lot of hand-me-down like quilts or things from my own family. I have a few things, but nothing that old. It's probably from the 20s, I would guess. And it's in great condition because it was just holding hardware in my relatives' basements, you know what I mean, until I got it. And it holds a place of prominence, like in our living room. And it's really, really cool.
That is something you will certainly be holding on to.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've never seen another one like it. I mean, it's pretty neat. So yeah, that's probably my most treasured, irreplaceable. Yeah, I would say.
I think we all have something, similar to that, to where, we just either it's it's from a family member or it's been passed down to us, or even sometimes it's something that you really find
Yeah.
at an estate sale and you're just like, I'm not selling that.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
funny because I used to, before I was selling, buying and selling, I was very possessive of my things I would find, and I would never sell any of this. And now it's kind of funny. Like I found that because I have access to so much stuff. Even if I love something, I buy it. I After I have it for a while, most things I can kind of like start to sell it off, or once I've enjoyed it, I feel like I can pass it on. There are some things like that that I'll obviously never sell, but a lot of I guess because I just have so much more exposure and know what's out there. You know, it's you can become more educated to what you can find and what's ordinary, what's
Right.
extraordinary, what's something you're never going to come across again. You know, that kind of thing. So I find that even though I have more stuff now and more collections, I don't hold on to things quite as much as I used to, which is
Right. I'm kind of, yep. I'm certainly about the same way there. I can display it in my house for a while and
right,
then I can pass it
right.
on to the next person.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. So yeah, it's which is a good thing. I think that's healthy. I really don't want to be a hoarder.
Exactly. So there's another item I want to talk about. It's kind of the what's it worth type of thing, right? So
Oh yes,
what's that item
yes.
that you maybe found and you were pretty excited to found it, or you maybe didn't even know what you had found yet, right?
That's the case for sure. When I was first starting to go to estate sales, and I really didn't understand how collectible vintage Halloween is, which is a massive, massive, probably the most collectible category, more than Christmas, because they just didn't make as many
Right.
Halloween things. And I bought a bunch of old books at in a garage like was in a garage in a cabinet, a bunch of old kids books that did graphically look cool. One of them was a Halloween book, and like I do with every sale, I'll bring stuff home and then I'll start to research it, which is really the interesting part of this business, I think. And discovered that this was a kid's book from 1928. It was a first edition, and it was sort of ideas for how to celebrate Halloween, and with this fantastic graphics. And it was just in great shape for
Yep.
a book that old. It didn't smell. A lot of books, they get stored in moldy places, and this one was really a nice shape. And I just looked it up on eBay, and found that it was worth, I think the last one I saw sold for about $375. And
Oh
so
wow.
I was just like, oh my goodness. So I think it was in January I found it. So I decided to wait until Halloween time to sell it.
Yep.
And I sort of advertised it on my Instagram, put it up on eBay, which I don't sell a lot of stuff on eBay, but that you have a really narrow, Halloween collectors really look there. It's very, very common. And so I ended up putting it up for auction, and it sold for $460 or something like
Oh
that.
my goodness.
Yeah. And I even
Nice
had
little
people,
return.
yeah, it was great. I mean, the whole box of books cost me $5 or something at the most. And so that, and it was quite valuable. And, so, and I ended up even selling, I scanned some of the pages, and some people wanted to buy just the images because they were so fantastic. A lot of
Wow.
silhouettes and really, really interesting, cool, so, and then someone really just wanted the whole book. So I was able to sell pages from the book and the book, which was kind of cool. I've actually done that with I haven't done it a ton, but with some Halloween, Christmas wrapping. Last Christmas, I found a stash of fantastic old wrapping paper in sheets, and I made it into PDFs, and I sold downloads of the images, because a lot of people, use it for crafting, and they don't really even care if it's the original paper. Some people want like a roll of paper, but a lot of people are just looking for images to print out, reproduce, use in their crafting or scrapbooking or something like that. So that's a whole other untapped if I get a
There
lot
you
of time.
go. Vintage digital, I guess, right?
Oh, it's huge actually on Etsy. If you look, it's like that's a big thing. Yeah. So I haven't gotten into a ton of that, but I did for a couple items. So that was a really that was a great find, you know. And I don't personally collect Halloween. It's one of the things I don't collect. I like it. I love Halloween, but I sort of haven't. I don't know why. I just you know, I don't
Sure.
decorate for every holiday. I'm not really that kind of person. I do for Christmas for sure because I just love vintage Christmas, but I don't do every single holiday like a lot of people do. So I don't have a problem finding Halloween and like letting it go.
Any of the other items that are,
Well, I
really
one of
personal to you, or you really want to show off?
yeah, one of my favorite collections is something that um, I keep adding to, and I think it's just my love of art supplies and
Yeah.
vintage old office stuff, and I just have these childhood memories. I went to when I was little. My mom sent me to like art school, and would go to the art supply store, and my dad was in advertising also, so I would go to his production studio, and they would give me old like leftover paper, and I was drawing my whole childhood. I was definitely always interested in art my whole life, and so I think I just have this connection and love of like old office supplies and
Right.
art supplies. And so one of the things that I've started collecting is tape. It's like vintage tape.
Tape,
Yeah,
as in
tape,
like
which
Scotch
is
tape.
so Scotch tape, like this, like rolls, like here's like
Oh,
metal containers. This one happens to be Christmas also, which is like a subset is like of you can see the tape
yeah.
has Christmas theme stuff on it. And but I collect those little metal rolls. A lot of them are plaid, which of course I love, like this. Here, let me show you that. And then if I can find whole displays like this, whoops, it's
Oh,
coming.
yeah.
But you can see that this is a whole display. Whoops.
Very. Yep. We can see it. Very
And then
nice.
yeah, and then of course I love plaid. So the
The
individual
plaids.
and there's many versions. 3M made hundreds of versions of widths and types of tape, and incredible. And there were other manufacturers also that made, this is a Christmas one, and this is another brand, Texel, and they have these little small gift tapes. Let me see if I can I'll pull this out. And I just love the graphic, on them, and the different
Yeah.
patterns of tape. And so I've started collecting tape. And that's another thing, is like you find it in the junk drawer at somebody's house.
Well, it's
And
amazing. It's amazing that thing is still all intact.
oh yeah, like the displays are incredible, and I love finding it like this in the original packaging, just the little one-off. I mean, the graphics are amazing. So that kind of
Well,
thing.
how many rolls of tape do you think you have now?
Oh, 300 at least 300, and people find it for me. Actually, that particular Texel, the Christmas one, I traded with another dealer. I gave him like 40 motorcycle magazines that I found, and he
Okay.
gave me that, and we were both so happy. So I think people have seen my collection. Whenever I add to it, I'll put it on Instagram, and now people are sending me like listings and just displays, and so it's getting quite out of control, but I love it. It's just really fun. Different. I like now that that's Scotch and Texel, but I like little niche brands. There's like electrical tape brands, and
Yeah.
ones that have cool graphics. I really into. So that's an example of something that just, it's not valuable per se, but it just, something about it, the multiples of it and the graphics of it, I just, no, I can't get enough of.
Part of why we collect is we collect things that make us happy, right?
Yeah.
And it might just be, it might not be something that's worth a whole lot of money, but it's just something
Right.
that we have a connection to.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's just, I like to be surrounded by things, especially these days. I've been at home for whatever 6 months now. It's kind of nice, everyone's working on their environments, and it's it's given me a lot of opportunity to kind of examine my collections and, move stuff around and, actually be really happy with the things I have. I just love them. So it's been interesting for
Well,
sure.
that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Thank you. Before we leave, obviously,
Yes. Yes.
thank you so much for being part of the show. It's been fantastic to have you on, and I can kind of see from your personality and the things that you connect of, the things that you like and things like that. But before we go, where can people find you? So obviously you're selling your items and such. So where can people buy your items, or where can they find you on Instagram or on Etsy or eBay?
Yep. So my Instagram handle is my name. So it's Ruth, initial S, Rosenfield. So my name. So it's at Ruth S. Rosenfield. And my shop is called Squirrel Vintage Shop, but you don't search it that way on Instagram. And I named it Squirrel Vintage Shop because squirrels are nature's hoarders. I like squirrels. So, and then on Etsy, it's under Squirrel Vintage Shop. When I opened my Etsy, I got that name. And I also, I sell in person when it reopens at the Alameda Flea Market in Northern California, about 6 times a year. I'm not one of those people that sells every single month, regular, but I'm there, especially not in the winter. It's a little, we have year-round flea markets here, and usually the weather's pretty good, but I'm not one to really want to, stand in the rain and, the tent and, my stuff, it depends what you sell. If you have furniture, you can kind of do that, but it's hard with small stuff. But mostly, it's on Instagram. And then if I post stuff, it's usually for sale. I don't usually post on my regular feed a lot of my collections. I'll put those in the Instagram stories, right. But I mostly post, when it's for sale, you'll know it's for sale. And most of the stuff I post is for sale. So yeah, so that's really the main place. On Etsy, not so much on eBay. Really eBay's for, I love sports collectibles too. And so a lot of, like, I don't want to say guy stuff, but more like that kind of stuff I might sell on eBay just because that's the audience, So that's really where.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a pleasure to have you. Learned a lot about your collection. It was just nice having you on. So thank you, and keep collecting.
Thank you so much, Chad. It's great to talk to you, and one day we'll meet in person. It'll be awesome.
One day, certainly will. Thanks again, Ruth.
Okay, bye.
Now that's a wrap, and that was a lot of fun too. And I certainly want to thank our guest, Ruth Rosenfield, for being on the show today. It was a pleasure having her on and have her share her collection with us. I also want to thank you guys. Thanks for watching. Now, if you would, be sure and hit that like button. Be sure and share this out with your friends and family. And be sure and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an episode. And if you want to follow along with me, you can catch me on Instagram at IRememberWhenVintage. So catch us next time on The Collectors as we get to share another unique and exciting collection. Now take care and keep collecting.